Tonian. We felt like after a conversation he and I had that his journey from childhood to his role as a community leader, mentor, and social justice activist isn't necessarily typical of a leadership story, but it is transformational. Aje is the CEO of I Believe in Me, a 501c3 youth mentorship program. After a short, well, not short, it actually was like an hour and a half. After a conversation Aje and I had a couple weeks ago out behind the Starbucks on North Market Street, I felt really strongly that the work that Aje has done was worth sharing with the Leadership program. But we're starting with the 2020 class today with this lecture, but we're going to record this lecture and make it available to the alumni group as well. So Aje, I want to first thank you for agreeing to join us today, and asking you a question. See if you'd be willing to talk about your experience growing up in Frederick, your reflections on the choices that you made growing up and becoming the man that you are today, and how those choices have influenced you through your formative years.
Absolutely. First and foremost, I want to thank you, Mr. Weldon, for taking the time to meet and greet and have the uncomfortable conversations with me. Oftentimes we don't know where to start, but the hardest part is starting, getting the conversation moving, getting the conversation into the ears of others. So I appreciate you, brother. I appreciate you reaching out to me outside of the chamber and wanting to sit down and talk, wanting to sit down and figure out how you and the people and the network that you have can make a difference. So words can never express my gratitude for you, sir. I appreciate you. All of you wonderful people that have joined the meeting. I know through COVID-19 and through the new normal, there's a lot of places that you could be, a lot of things that you could be recovering from. So taking this hour this morning and coming and listening, it means the world to someone like me. My name is Aje Hill. And at one point in my life, I was a convict. I was a degenerate. I was a liar. I was a thief. Not to no choice of nobody but my own. I had great parents. I had a mom, a dad, a brother, working family, loving family, but I chose to rebel. And it started out so small. We were athletes. Me and my brother were athletes. And he was a great baseball pitcher, a great basketball player, a great football quarterback. But I played on the same field as him, and I was the one that was the back catcher when he was throwing those fastballs. I was the one that had to block all the balls that came in the dirt. But when we got in the car after the game, my mom and dad were only talking about the home runs that he hit, how fast his pitch came, and he struck everybody out, how he jumped up on the fence and caught that ball. But I'm like, hold on. I did have all on that equipment. It was 95 degrees outside, and I was the back catcher. So what it was I was lacking attention. I wasn't getting the attention that I thought I needed. So what did I do? I rebelled. I went and got attention. I got new friends. I went to a place where I knew my brother wouldn't dare go. I went to the streets. And with that, I started to get the attention. With that, I started to get the love that I thought was the love that I needed. But the love that I truly needed was God and what my parents instilled in me. So in this quest of rebelling, I visited a lot of dark places. Again, my choice. Mom, dad had plenty of mentors telling me that wasn't the route that I wanted to go, but I experienced deep waters. And in those deep waters, it came to a point in my life, it progressively got worse. It progressively got worse. And with that, the judge gave me 20 years, all suspended, but 8. And when I went to the penitentiary, I was so mad at her. I called her every name in the book. But today, when I go into the Frederick County Courthouse, I go and see Judge Salt, and I thank her for saving my life. Because without her, I'd probably be in that penitentiary or in a cemetery. So the thing that she did by setting me down, making me think about the people I hurt, the hurt I've caused myself, the hurt I've caused my family. She saved my life. But in that prison term, it was real dark. It was real lonely. And at one point, I gave up on myself. I understood that my way is no longer working. I crashed the car every time. So in these dark nights, God came to me and I heard this voice say, do you believe in yourself? And I was paralyzed. I couldn't move. My bunk buddy asked me, he's like, man, what's wrong with you? You ain't been out to bed in 2 days. But he didn't understand. God wasn't allowing me to move until I gave the answer. Because if I was not able to give the answer, death it was. So when I answered God, he replied to me and said, change is one of the hardest things to do in America because it doesn't happen overnight. It's not going to happen in a week. It's not going to happen in a month or 6 months. You have to grow in the different levels of change. And me being a convict, me being a degenerate, I got to do a full 180, not a 360, because a 360 brings me back to the misfit that I was. So I got to do a 180. And through this, the people that are hurt, God is telling me this is how you make amends. You make amends by helping someone understand that what you went through is darkness. There's no light in it. So provide some light into the community. So I sat there and I thought about it. How do I do this? But God already had the plan. So the plan was when he asked me if I believe in myself. So I came up with I believe in me. And every day in my self-inventory, even in prison, what I did was I freed my mind. My body was still locked up, but I was able to free my mind to think about how I can help this community be a better place. Because life is about legacies. At one point, there's going to be a lot of dirt that sprinkles over top of me and my body's just going to be in a box. But I have a 2-year-old daughter. I need her to know who her father is. I need her father's name to be here while she's running her legacy. So the work that I do now builds a legacy. The kids that I impact now, the community that I impact now builds the legacy. So I got some work to do. So when I was released from the penitentiary, man, all the doors were not only closed, they were locked because of choices of my own. Not because of my mom or dad not loving me, not because of the judge, not because of the police officer, not because of anything, because of choices of my own. So in those choices, those doors being locked, it was hard for someone to believe that a guy that just came home from the penitentiary could add any value to any children. He's untrustworthy. He's not in a place where we think that the knowledge and education that he wants to give to the youth, they need to know. But I think otherwise, because the education that I receive, you can't get into college. You can't get online. You get through experience. And some of these kids are glorifying things that they don't even know how dark the path comes once they get on that path. So with that, when I came home, it was hard for me to even get a job because of who I was, because of my resume, because of what I've done. And as we know, change is hard. People don't all of a sudden believe in change. So I moved to a town in Atlanta with a friend of mine that I went to high school with. And I started working for her. She ran her own business. It was called Community Living. And she brought patients into the doctor's office to see a doctor to be mentally evaluated. And I was the transportation driver. So I picked up about 15 people a day and I brought them into the center and then I took them home. But on that ride, I was convincing these people that it's not a disease. It's just a diagnosis. We have air in our lungs. We got sight to see. Let's be great. And as I stayed in Atlanta for like a year, God just kept coming to me every morning in self-inventory and says, this is not what I told you to do. I wanted you to help those where you affected, where you put poison into the street. I want you to turn that poison into purpose. So I thought. And I told my friend, I said, I got to go home. And she was like, well, you were just home. You couldn't get a job. You couldn't do anything you wanted to do. I said, I didn't try hard enough. So when I went back home, I went to college. I went to Strayer University. I got my degree, AA in business administration. Because I knew I had an education in the lifestyle, dealing drugs, not dealing hope, dealing drugs. So I have to learn how to be successful in the new society, in the new realm of helping people. So with my AA in business administration, I learned how to start a business. And we got a nonprofit 501c3 for charity for our organization. Our organization, again, is called I Believe in Me. So once I got my nonprofit, we started this organization with one kid. Back in 2016, we had one kid in the program. We picked him up every day and we met him, we fed him, we talked to him, because sometimes as kids, what happens is we swallow all of the fears. We swallow all of the pain, and we never get to talk about it until it's time to throw it up. And sometimes it's too late. So in this one kid, I can tell you all today, in 4 years, we have 54 young men and women in this program, trying to provide hope, trying to provide a light, trying to prevent them from the darkness. And what people don't understand, someone's always saying, thank you, Mr. Aje. Thank you, Mr. Aje. Man, at one point in my life, I crashed the car every time. I'm so thankful that now God drives the car and I'm just able to work the gas and the brakes. These kids, these families, this community keeps me away from the people, places, and things that made my life unmanageable. So I'm thankful to be able to serve in this community. I'm thankful to be able to play a role, because we don't win alone. I tell my team that if the score is 68-67, we may have won, but we didn't win because of Aje. We win because of everyone playing their position. So I'm just thankful to be able to speak to wonderful people like you, involved in the chamber, involved in helping people, building relationships with Mr. Weldon, him offering a helping hand to break the generational curses that do exist and have the uncomfortable conversations. So I appreciate you guys.
So one of the questions I wanted to ask is, there's always power in stories, and the stories that you and I shared that day sitting behind the Starbucks really struck me and are the principal motivation for why the chamber is now going to have what I think is an important role to play in facilitating very complicated, difficult, hard conversations in our community. But stories are powerful. And if you could talk for just, without betraying any confidences, but if you could talk about what you see in these young men and young women that look at you, look to you, hear the message that you share with them, and are starting to take those steps and make those decisions. Can you talk a little bit about some of the young men and women in the program and what you've seen and what you're starting to see with them?
Absolutely, sir. Well, right now we're experiencing COVID-19, and as you wonderful people know, there's a lot of trauma that comes with COVID. It's not just hunger needs. There's domestic needs. There's trauma. There's physical. There's drug. There's so much that's going on in these homes that we don't know about. And we were blessed to be able to get back to mentor services about 3 weeks ago through the Damascus Road Community Church. We're meeting there 4 times a week, getting back to meeting the kids where they are. And the first item up for bid was hygiene items, because mom is struggling to pay the lights and the rent and the cable to keep the kids smiling, to keep him able to play his Xbox, to keep him able to use his computer to do schoolwork. But what we don't know about is the other things that may be going on in the home, such as hygiene items, something so small for the kid to be able to be clean. So we passed every kid hygiene items at our program. Now, I'm going to refrain from names because this is kind of HIPAA and I've already taken care of it, so I'm going to refrain from any names. But one of the kids, a week later, he came to program, and this is why I do what I do. And some of the kids were making fun of him. They were saying, hey, Mr. Aje gave us soap and lotion and stuff last week, and you still stink. See, kids don't understand. Something could be going on in that home that's making him not want to take a shower. Well, long story short, and he's in child custody care right now, his mom was sucking his penis. A 7th grader. So that's why he doesn't want to take a shower. That's why he doesn't want to smell clean. That's why he doesn't care that his friends think he's dirty. Trauma is at an all-time high right now. Some of these kids are rebelling so much they're not even going home because there's no food at home. There's no love at home. There's no attention at home. And we at I Believe in Me tend to meet that need, tend to stand in the gap and try to help the kid talk about those fears, talk about that pain. And sometimes we need professional help. A couple weeks ago, it's hurt my heart right now that I can't see this kid, but I had to turn this kid over to professional help because that's generational curse. His mom's calling me every day now, cursing me out, but she needs help too. So it's my duty as a leader, it's my duty knowing fabulous people in the community like you all to partner these people with help. Another thing I say is financial literacy. That's one of the main components of our program right now because everybody wants money, but we're confused on what to do with it. We don't even know how to manage it. We think when we get money, we're supposed to get the new Michael Jordans or the new hair weave. We need people to teach us how to make the money work, how to make the money stretch, how to market the money, how to invest the money, because recruitment of resources is very important right now because I call it unlearn to relearn. We've learned so many bad habits, so many bad morals and principles about life. IBM is trying to relearn, teach them what's right. Because if we're getting resources and we don't know what to do with them, it's the blind leading the blind. So we're starting to structure, we're starting to prepare, we're starting to educate, and we're starting to empower these families through our mentor program.
When we talked about mentoring, it was clear that it had to be the foundation of I Believe in Me, but you yourself benefit from mentors in our community. Can you talk about the importance of being able to connect with people that you trust, that demonstrate that they're concerned about you and the program and the kids as opposed to their own interests? What's the importance of your mentors in helping you be the mentor that you've become?
Great question, Mr. Weldon, because the mentors are vital into my success because sometimes I have questions, sometimes I have fears, and being able to turn to mentors in this community, it gives me so much support and so much wisdom on how to move forward. I'll start with Mr. Jason Lee. Me and Mr. Jason Lee goes back almost 25 years. He was the manager at Burger King on Route 85. And that was my first job ever. He taught me work ethic. He taught me how to move a broom. He taught me how to move a mop. And he taught me something about life that I own today, how to show up, how to be accountable, and how to do work that not only the boss would be pleased with, but that you would be pleased with. Right now, today, the support that he gives me, not only through financial support, guidance, telling me to come over and sit on his porch so he can talk to me and make sure that my emotional and mental state is right. Words can never express what that means to me because Jason has a similar background as me in survival and selling narcotics and selling drugs and ending up in a place where none of us would wish on our worst enemy. But when Mr. Jason came home, he was able to change. So he set up a model for me and applied some hope to me to let me know that it's possible to change. It's possible to overcome mistakes. What some people perceive as an error or mistake, someone like me takes it as a gift because I learned from it. I was able to walk through what I went through and now help the community. Next, a mentor of mine would be Mr. Paul Falls, Damascus Road Community Church assistant pastor. He has taught me things about life, things about my spirituality. When I was in my penitentiary cell, it was God that came to me and saved my life. It was God that had those conversations with me about being a better person, being a beacon, being a hope dealer rather than a dope dealer, being someone that could give something back. Because oftentimes people are always saying, you're always giving us something. Well, God's not going to give me anything unless I keep on giving it away. He assured me of that. So being the person that oftentimes we're forced to listen to reply. I like to be in a room full of people like you guys where I can listen to understand. Because what I understand, what I learn, I can take back and give to the people within my circle, give to the youth, give to the community so that we can learn together. So Mr. Paul Falls has been instrumental in my spiritual, instrumental in providing investments and financial support for us to continue dealing critical grocery needs into our community at a time like this when people are suffering. Instrumental in allowing us to come all the way to Damascus Road Community Church 4 days a week to get back to these children, to get back to the need. Not only allowing us to utilize the church, bringing lunch every day from Chipotle, Starbucks, KFC, you name it, just partnerships with food, and also sending in MMA, martial arts instructors to teach the kids, giving us people within the church. The assistant pastor, Miss Michelle Rader, allows the kids to come to her mansion every Friday and swim outside of her pool and cooks them hamburgers and hot dogs and fresh baked cookies. It's just a magical feeling having so many guys in my life and gals in my life right now that continue to show up and provide hope for this community. So mentorship that we're applying to the community, to the youth, that's fun. But having mentors in my life that continue to help me grow and develop is a privilege.
Yeah, that's great. If all you ever did was create a 501c3 and positively impact the lives of 54 young men and young women, that's an accomplishment that most people couldn't look in a mirror and say, I did that, right? But that wasn't enough for you. So through working with the young men and young women in I Believe in Me and being connected to the community that you come from, you also understood that during COVID, food security was a huge issue for people. So I've already shared via email the PowerPoint slide that you had created. So the whole class has seen the numbers. Could you talk about these food distribution drops, why you were driven to it, motivated to do it, and the positive effect you've seen standing in hot school parking lots or neighborhood parking lots, distributing food with other volunteers to these families that just have either financial concerns or talk about that, please.
Absolutely, sir. First of all, let me start by saying this. It's never an I or me, it's a we. Because if I say I did something alone, this wouldn't have lasted 16 weeks. This was done together. That's why it's a marathon. That's why it didn't end up as a race and we got tired and ran out and let the people down. Because so many wonderful people are involved. I'll start with Mr. Brad Young. Our mentor program provides food to our students when they come in the mentor program after school because these kids deal with hunger sacrifices. So when the COVID-19 pandemic started, we went to this thing called online learning. And my biggest fear was you're asking these kids to get up and learn, and they don't have the proper nutrients to make the brain stimulate. The brain needs an orange juice. The brain needs a Pop-Tart. The brain needs something to get to learn. So what we started doing was pulling up at our mentee's house and bringing them a Hope box. In that box, it was some noodles, some Pop-Tarts, some bagels from Bimbo Bakeries. Shout out to Bimbo Bakeries for their partnership. Some pecan swirls, just the necessities to get the brain to start working. But when we was coming out of the building of our mentees, there were so many people lined up saying, hey, I need some food. I'm hungry. So I reached out to people like Mr. Young. I reached out to Bimbo Bakeries. My board of directors started to apply pressure and getting partnership for the community to be able to eat. And with that, Bimbo Bakeries, Starbucks, United Way, Community Foundation, Delaplane Foundation, Second Street of Hope, Angel Lily Foundation, Damascus Road. We have a list of sponsors that I've seen you guys see that when I look at that list, sometimes I cry because the amount of folks that have dealt hope to these patrons in a time of need is an incredible statement about Frederick County. It speaks measures in itself about the people that are really concerned and they care on their heart about our patrons, especially during crisis. So during crisis, we want to make sure that these people are treated like people, because these people that are struggling are the same very people that went into the economy and worked at McDonald's, worked at these grocery stores to help our economy be as great as what it was. So we want to be sure that we treat these people like human beings. If we can't treat them like human beings and give them the items that they had in their household before COVID-19, let's not insult them and give them what we want them to eat. Let's steal some hope. So with that, we like to bring produce, we like to bring meats, we like to bring canned foods, we like to bring cereal, milk, everything that I would eat in my home. Let's treat them like the human beings that we are, because we do know that when they did have money, they were the ones going back into the grocery store spending their money to make sure their family ate well. So we want to make sure that they're still, even through the darkness of the pandemic, they're still eating well, because not eating well could lead to suicide. Not eating well could lead to abuse. Not eating well could lead to so many things that could cause death. So we want to protect the hunger needs as much as we can. So over the last 16 weeks, with the incredible help of the volunteers, all the volunteers that we have should have capes, because the hardest part about being any type of volunteer is showing up, getting to the location, setting everything outside of your schedule and getting there. For 16 weeks, I've had 15 volunteers that have been loyal and consistent. And I can tell you guys, we've served almost 11,000 patrons through COVID-19. And it's not about the food, because when these patrons leave, they leave with a smile, and they leave with the hope that things are going to get better. They're encouraged that there are people and organizations and businesses in this community like yourself that care and will continue to provide a net of hope and food during this pandemic. So being able to serve, being able to have help from this community, that is the reward for me. That's what keeps me going back, and those smiles on those patrons' faces. So I just thank everybody for continuing to show up and provide help into this community so we can continue to meet the COVID-19 needs.
So you and your team, so I'll give credit to your team. That's both your regular volunteers, but also all your sponsors, both corporate sponsors and nonprofit sponsors and funders, the entities that provide the food, donate the food. You've found a way to feed souls and stomachs through a time most of us will look back and say it was the worst, most uncertain, scariest time that we've lived through in our lives.
For me, Mr. Weldon, I'm an addict. So addicts tend to go backwards during time like this. So God kept me moving forward. Okay. See, I'm addicted to the lifestyle. I'm addicted to the people. So God gave me something to prevent me. Some addicts are dying right now from overdoses. So I'm thankful that God came to me and gave me an outlet, gave me another way to lead through crisis, to help not only the community, but like I said, it helps myself and my brain and my thinking so much as well.
So it takes a man who can absorb that message, process that message, and then turn that into action steps and inspiration to bring volunteers and to bring funders and sponsors. So this is connected. And then a Black man is murdered by a white police officer in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And it's not the first time in your adult life where you've experienced a brother die at the hands of law enforcement. So just like you have with I Believe in Me, just like you've done with the food distribution, you felt compelled to advocate, to be active in conversations with the community that have to start in the form of protest, because first you have to get attention. Talk about that.
Absolutely, man. Man, I could tell, Mr. Weldon, man, you was a radio producer, a pastor, a father, one heck of a man, because you be prepared, man. Your questions be like, boom, right on point. Man, I appreciate you, brother. But yes, protests are definitely important now. Let's make do that in a protest, if someone gets hurt or someone goes to jail, it's non-void. So as a leader, it's my duty to have a purpose to this protest. Being a Black man in America, privilege in America to me is this. I wake up in the morning and I say, what can I do? See, some of my white friends wake up and they say, what do I want to do? Being black is hard. I'm not complaining. I love every second of it. But it's hard because of some people, you hear people, some saying right now, black on black crime. It's tough for me because why is there black on black crime? Lack of resources, stealing from each other because they lack the things needed to survive. I call it horizontal crime and vertical crime. That's a conversation for another day, though. But in our protests, we just want everyone to be treated equally. We want equal opportunity, economic development, economic infusion, because our people are 450 years behind. How do we get ahead without help? How do we get ahead? How do we get even on equal and solid ground without someone making a notion that we're behind and adding some type of economic infusion into to help the problem? Because we're all admitting right now, white, black, green, and different, that there is a problem. There's definitely a problem. But what makes the leader is how you solve the problem. Taking different platforms to address the problem. Not going low, going high. Coming up with a plan. Coming up with a practical, strategical plan, not for me, for the people. For these young men and women that we are working with right now, so that when they're my age, they have an equal opportunity as a black, a green, a blue, a red, a orange, whatever color of their skin, whatever diversity, whatever challenge, whatever obstacle they've come up with in life, having the opportunity to be great. Because sometimes the color of our skin prevents us from being great, prevents us from reaching our full potential. What we've seen with Mr. Floyd, sadly, this has been happening. But what has happened is now we have cell phones. Now we can see it. This has been going on for over 450 years. We as the people were now able to see what's happening. So Mr. Floyd, rest in peace. Breonna Taylor, Trayvon Martin, the list goes on. I wear a shirt that says say their names, and it means a lot to me because I mourn for them. The reason that I stand in the gap with these young men and women is to give them education, to give them rights, to get them engaged with police officers, to teach those kids the police is not the enemy. Because sometimes in a black home, the black kid is taught F the police, and it's not right. But because daddy's been beat up by the police, or daddy's been to prison and only could afford a public defender because he doesn't have the resources to get a lawyer, all of the hatred on the heart toward the system, we develop this negative attitude toward the police. Hatred is never learned, it's taught. So we wonder why our kids are coming into the communities with this hatred toward the police. It's something that's being taught at home. So me as a leader, it's my duty to bridge the gap. Make a relationship with the sheriff department. Make a relationship with the police department so these kids can go fishing, go to baseball games, go to soccer games, go and know that they are not the enemy. They are the help. Because if someone's doing something to my grandmother, I'm calling the police. I'm not going to do anything myself. I'm going to pick up the phone and call 911. So defund the police, that's not me. I know we need police, but we just need accountability measures in place to make the people comfortable with the police. So in these protests, we do have some demands. And the demands are not outlandish. It's just equal rights. And Mr. Weldon, I'll share those with you so you can share with all of these wonderful people. It's about 5 or 6 things, but I think what you're asking me is in the protest, what do we want? Why are we there? We want peace. We want justice. We want equal rights. We want equality. And we want our fair chance at being great. We want economic infusion. We want community policing along with the policing so that we know that when the police officer comes into Sagners or Saint Street, that whatever happened, it was also caught by another community member, a community liaison. We're not trying to defund I mean, there is people in Frederick that are carrying signs that say defund the police, but like I said, that's different platforms. Everyone's not going to be on the same platform. Everyone's not going to agree, but we must have a purpose, and the platform that we stand for does stand for purpose.
So I'm going to ask the class before we wrap up, if you've got questions, you could either chat them in, or if you're able, and I think you are, you could unmute to ask your question. But I know Aje was interested and willing to hear from all of you too. But look, I just want everybody on the call and everybody that will watch this recording to understand why I asked Aje to be our first guest. So I talked to you all back in the fall when you started this adventure, and we had no idea we were going to not see each other for 90 days, that a leader sees a challenge and tries to employ the skills and talent and experience to address that challenge. And often it takes time and resources, but it always takes hard, thankless, and sometimes even computational effort to actually make a difference. A transformational leader is the one who inspires others to see and share their vision, to invest their own time and resources, and to never give up. Aje, you are a transformational leader, and I applaud you that you don't want to be given sole credit, because it's not about an individual, but it is about a movement, and a movement takes focus and attention and commitment and passion to drive it, and that's what you've done. And where we're going with this, because of that work, this chamber is going to start a platform of dialogue facilitated by Ms. Tony Bowie from Max Life on employment, housing, healthcare, primary education, K through 12, and economic opportunity. We're going to talk about capital investment, how capital investment is different for a young Black man than it is for a young white man, how it's easier for me to gain access to affordable healthcare than it is for a member of the minority community. I have a better chance of signing a lease on an apartment than a member of the minority community. And we need to establish what the baseline metrics are for Frederick, so that as we start to work together as a team to improve these conditions, we can score ourselves again. Every 6 months, front page of the FNP, I envision community metrics where we're looking at the work that we do, making a measurable, quantifiable difference. So, Aje, you are a partner. You keep calling me Mr. Weldon, and I keep telling you I'm almost 62 years old, and that makes me feel 62. But I consider you a partner. Jason is a partner. Jason was the first chairman of this chamber board when I became CEO. We're partners. One of us is not more responsible for moving that ball than any of the rest of us are, but we all are together. So I want to give the class a chance to either chime in with questions or chat in questions. Anybody?
Hey, Rick, this is Dexter.
Hey, Dexter.
Hey, I hope everybody's doing well coming out of COVID-19. I want to tell Aje, hey, brother, keep doing what you're doing. I met you at City Youth Matrix during one of their events. So you're doing an outstanding job. I'm involved with what's going on through one of my other organizations. But I want to just kind of caveat what you said and help everybody understand, because I think a lot of times people, we as Americans, we see who is running the protest, and we automatically say, hey, well, that's not me, doesn't apply to me. So I want everybody to understand that what Aje is saying when he talks about how hard it is to wake up every morning and wonder, how does the nation view Black people, view Black males? Most of you all know, and Aje, I don't think you know it, but I'm an Army military officer, and I will tell you the last 3 months have been a struggle for me. It's a struggle for a lot of Black officers and Black enlisted soldiers in the military right now because of what we're seeing. And the dialogue that's happening to ignore what's going on and say there's nothing there. When I take this uniform off, I understand that I'm nothing to a lot of people. They see another Black individual. A lot of people don't understand that I'm proud of being in the Army. I have military plates on my vehicle because I'm proud of that, but it's also to, if I get stopped by a cop, to put ourselves on some type of same level. He automatically doesn't just see a Black person in that vehicle. He sees, hey, this is a veteran. It disarms him enough not to view me as a threat when I'm not in uniform. So that's what Aje is talking about. And I don't think a lot of people really understand what we deal with. And like Aje said, I'm not complaining. I'm proud of who I am in my community. But that's what you really have to understand. A lot of people in America dictate what my citizenship looks like and tries to determine when I'm an American citizen and when I'm not. And that's something we all as Americans should not be tolerating. If we're going to get beyond where we are right now, we have to accept everybody as an American and understand that we've got problems that we've got to deal with as Americans. So, Aje, keep doing what you're doing. I'm involved in other ways because of my position. I can't do a lot of things that I like, but I'm there and I support everything that you all are doing.
Thank you, Colonel.
Hey, Aje, I just wanted to take an opportunity. This is Twanda. First of all, I did have an opportunity to see you at one of the protests, and I really appreciate, everything that everybody's doing. It is some tough times, and as a mom and a grandmom of African-American kids, it's a tough thing to battle what some of the folks are going through right now, and you try to continue to instill, some type of positivity, and to try to break down some of those barriers, to not to be angry. Like I said, as a mom, my fear is every single day when they walk out the door, but at the same time, to also try to instill in that, that just try to remember that, that you do have a voice, and to be here and not afraid or not be so angry, but at the same time, but not to be afraid to have to walk out the door, not be afraid of when you're going into the store and you're coming out and you're being questioned. And unfortunately, that's a battle that my son goes through today, just to go to the store and come to coffee, it's like, why are you here? Or what are you doing here? Or what are you doing driving this vehicle? So, my thing is, it's a tough battle, but to try to keep him positive from the fact of just not being angry just because of a blue uniform or a brown uniform, and realizing that not everybody behaves that way. It's just, unfortunately, you have a few bad apples in the bunch. But keep up the great job. What else can we do? Certainly, there's how can we even contribute to the cause? How can we donate to what you're doing? I'd be more than happy to try to do what I can do and, work with different folks that I know. I just had the opportunity recently to be asked to join the Mental Health Association board. So certainly it's a lot of great things that are going to be happening and moving forward, and anything that I can do to help the cause, I'd be more than happy to do so. Great job.
Love you, Twanda. That was awesome. And because I anticipated your question, in the chat box, I just added Aje's email address. Aje would love to hear from you. So a couple others, Sue Huff, a couple others have offered how they could help. The best way to help, email Aje. He will tell you what he's doing. He will tell you what he needs. And then all of us can join this transformational leadership journey alongside Aje. So the email is in the chat box.
So thankful for you all. I'm sorry, Rick said that, he said a good thing. He said the movement continues to move because of ordinary people doing extraordinary things like you all. The movement doesn't move by I move. God gives me air in my lungs in the morning, and it's up to me what I do with it. Being able to meet and join forces for the youth and what is next for our future in our community, you guys is what keep the movement moving. So I'm thankful. Words can never, when I meet more people that are enthused, excited, and convicted about helping our community, it's a humble feeling to me. So I'm thankful for every one of you that are listening, every one of you that will reach out to support, whether it be through tutoring, whether it be through giving your time, whether it be monetary, whether it be through being an avenue of mental support for me, whatever it be, we appreciate it. And this is how we become great. And this is how we be a part of the solution rather than the problem. So I'm tremendously grateful for all of you this morning.
So in the last 2 minutes that we have together, here's the question that I've been wanting to ask you since you and I met at that Starbucks off North Market Street. In 2 minutes, what does a better, fairer, more complete Frederick look like in your eyes and in the eyes of the young men and women that you're working with right now? And I believe in me. What's future Frederick look like?
Future Frederick looks like a more diverse school board, more Black and Latino teachers coming back to educate our youth, coming back to give back to our community, more equal opportunity, more jobs of people with color having the same chance of getting those jobs, more people of color in places that dictate policy, in office, politicians and delegates and things like that, moving Frederick into a place of we want people to come and see what our model looks like. We want people to say, well, look at Frederick. They're making some changes there. They have equal rights. They have economic infusion for the African American and diverse cultures. They have togetherness because we're stronger together. If we all continue to stand up together and come up with a plan together, I believe just by us being at the table, because if you're not at the table, you're part of the menu. If you're not at the table, figuring out ways to make it better, because as I said, Rick, it's not going to be me. It's going to be we. It's going to be us. So being able to sit at the table, because some of you are professionals in economic development. So I need to talk to you guys and learn from you guys about economic development. Some of you are professionals in landscaping. Some of you need employees. Well, I hold keys to the future of those employees, of those landscaping businesses, because these kids are brilliant. These kids have the brains. It's just a matter of getting the brains to work and everything besides those devices and those PlayStations and those Xboxes. Let's get their brains equipped to what we're going to need them to be in this thing called life.
I think it's a vision that everybody on this call shares with you. So the challenge I'm going to put out to everybody on this call is let's all commit to working together with Aje, with the other leaders in our community, whether they're designated by ballot or self-designated. Let's all work together to try to achieve that future vision of Frederick. And I don't think it has to be a decade. I think it literally can be as quickly as us being willing to commit ourselves to this work. So Aje, and thank you from the bottom of my heart for taking this time. We're going to share this message and get it out there so that your phone is ringing off the hook with volunteers, with donors, with patrons, and with future mentors. So thank you again. And thank you all for being on the call. You will get an email from me with the plan for classes going forward. We've got a plan. We're going to get back together in September. It might be virtual to start, but eventually it'll be all of us back together again, and we'll communicate that via email later today. So Aje, thanks again. Have a great day. I'll talk to you soon.
You guys have a great day.
Everybody from the class, thank you for taking the time to be with us today. Have a good day.